There was a time when you were young, before you learned to live in your head and in concepts of yourself, that you were free of that ego aspect of the mind. This is a very unselfconscious stage, which is part of what makes it more enjoyable and so appealing. You can't really go back to childhood, back to that pre-egoic consciousness, but there is a way to move beyond it to a third stage of consciousness, being trans-egoic or post-egoic, meaning above or after, and transcending that judgmental aspect of the mind. And it's that which I talk about in this second part of my interview with Radio Marlow FM.
James, we're talking about wisdom, and so how we can move back from what I'm getting to a place of loving ourselves and being more happier in our lives.
Yeah.
You were talking there just during the break about the different stages of childhood and adulthood. Just take me through that again.
Yes. So it's largely about the relationship to ego, and ego is the need to identify ourselves or think of ourselves in a way based on the mind. Ken Wilber has a great saying, the mind, wonderful servant, horrible master,
Yeah.
which probably ties into some of the things you were talking about earlier. So children are pre-egoic. They haven't yet learnt to define themselves through mental beliefs and opinions and the need for approval elsewhere. So they're purely in their being, and they're free, and they're living in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is that as we grow up into adults, our society, and because the majority of the population hasn't yet reached a level of awareness, of wisdom in their own development, which is perfectly fine for this year that we're living in. But it does mean that as children become into adults, we're all, as adults, becoming self-judging. We're defining ourselves through an ego, through identification with our thoughts and our beliefs. So essentially, the mind is becoming the master and not the servant. So we're not living in the moment. We're not doing things that genuinely make us happy, but we're looking for approval or to fit in.
And we're also,
okay.
I guess it's the mind is telling us that if you have this, and this, you'll be happy. If you're with that person, you'll be happy. So it has us constantly seeking happiness outside of ourselves.
It's always looking for that inherent sense of okayness in things, in finite objects, whether it's relationships or a certain amount of money or a job. And we think that would bring us genuine peace, like you were talking about attachment to money. If I have loads of money, then I'll have genuine peace of mind. Well, actually, that's not true. If you have attachment to wealth being your sense of inherent okayness, if you ever get wealth, you're still going to have a sense of a lack of peace because you're going to be attached to the wealth.
And you want more. I mean, how many people get what they want in terms of millions, and then they want another million and another million?
It's okay to do that. It's perfectly acceptable to get a million and another million, or to get a great lover and then a great job and all these kind of things. If it's from a position of freedom, which it rarely is, if it's from a position of the mind needing to tick these things, then as soon as you achieve one, the ego part of the mind will just replace it. So adulthood is largely stage 2. Children are pre-egoic. What we have the opportunity to develop now is a stage 3, which has much less to do with age. The old idea of wisdom is a guy with 60 plus with a beard sitting on a rock, that kind of thing. That has to go out the window. And the opportunity is there for a large population of adults to stop being human thinkings and start being human beings and actually be in their body. It's a much more comfortable place to live. It feels a lot better, it's more enjoyable, and there's no more need to, as I was saying earlier, when the mind is defining us, beating us up like that, it's actually saying who we are inherently is not okay. So this is me, I'm going to honour my truth and feel like this, and I want to do this. If I love myself, or have allowance of that, or self-love, that's okay. If the mind has become the master and the bully and not the servant, then that says to me, no, you need to be this, you need to be that. Actually, that becomes an absence of self-love.
Which is what creates the consumerism of plastic surgery or makeup or whatever it is that we're buying in order to help us to feel better about ourselves.
It's consumerism, it's all those kind of things. Again, there's nothing inherently wrong with wearing makeup if you do it from a position of freedom and it's a creative act, a joyful act that you want to do it. It's something you literally want to do for you, for whatever. Even if it's to look good, that's okay. But it's the freedom of mind that it's coming from. And if we're not doing it from that sense of freedom, we're going to be doing it to appease others, or because we think we should, or because we think it's not okay to show our genuine personality and person, which is always much more beautiful anyway.
So you've mentioned a couple of times there about the word freedom, freedom from the master, the mind being the master.
Yeah.
And earlier I was talking to Reinhardt about mindfulness meditation as a process that, from my understanding, would help some people with that.
Yeah.
What is the process that you're recommending that would help us to move from this, what I'm hearing as an enslavement to the mind, to a more natural state of freedom of being?
Mindfulness absolutely is fantastic. That's exactly what we do. What I do is, because I'm teaching these principles like the definition of emptiness and these understandings that when we're judging ourselves, we're not loving ourselves, we're not allowing ourselves to be a human being and in our body, but we're in our thinking. So it's doing that mindfulness practice back of having these understandings. So if we have these understandings and definitions, they're kind of like signposts directing us. If I just started to do mindfulness and I sat there and I let my uncomfortable thoughts arise, they may scare the heck out of me and I'm going to go running for the hills. Even if they don't, which they would, but if I have the courage to sit there, then as the thoughts arise, I still may be identifying with them. So I'm not going to know what to do with them to actually make use of them. I'm going to be, the thoughts arise. Oh, a thought comes up, I'm a bad person. I shouldn't be nervous. I shouldn't be this. Well, unless I've been taught what wisdom is or what I'm going to do about that, awareness of those thoughts is just going to make me feel uncomfortable for the sake of making me feel uncomfortable. So it's the understanding that allows us to see, when these thoughts arise, I don't need to judge myself. So if we're looking for moving from state of being a human thinking, stage 2 adulthood, to a human being, stage 3 freedom, then we have to use the tools from the stage 3, which means not judging ourselves. So it means that if I'm in mindfulness, I know that when something arises, I'm not going to judge it, I'm going to allow it to be there.
So it's bringing in it's also helping the mind to understand, bringing in a logic.
Yes.
So that the mind goes, aha, okay, I understand where you're going with this, and doesn't keep interfering with its own.
Absolutely. There's kind
business.
of two aspects to this dynamic. That on the one hand, we can't think our way out of this. We have to go to we're moving up to a stage, a way of being, which is much more about feeling into our bodies and emotions and intuitive, just going with it. So the mind becomes a lower thing. But you're quite right. At the same time, the mind never turns itself off. So if we can give it some understanding of its role, then when it gives us pieces of information, rather than interpreting them as beating us up, we can interpret them as the mind saying, it's merely giving us information saying, hey, you hold this information, you hold this belief about yourself that you're not very good, or that you need to be nervous in this situation. Would you like to let it go? So we're interpreting it. We're not judging it because it arises. It's a piece of information. Then I can make something more useful of it, and then I can choose to receive the gift of me, or more me, by saying, yes, that's right, I had been shutting a part of myself away and not allowing the world to see it, or not allowing me to enjoy it. Actually, the mindfulness, as things arise, if I can get past the momentary discomfort, which is safe anyway, you can learn that it's safe, then there's actually a gift there for me, so I'm going to take those back. And after I've done it for a year or two, you realise that there's nothing down there to fear in terms of your sense of self. I say a year or two, it could vary for people. But then you get into a point, it's like, yeah, give me this uncomfort, I want to take this back, I want to take that back. I'd buried a passion for dancing, so I'll have that back.
Reclaiming our passions.
Yeah, public speaking. It's like, I'm not going on the radio, that's scary. I'd like to, but I'm not going to. So you like I am now, you reclaim things that previously were your truth, but denied to you by the outside conditioning. So we're all living under this veil of fear and a secondary experience, the need for approval and the illusion behind that. So if we can break that down and understand wisdom, then we really can build a healthy society that's
excellent.
Happy.